Rep Chavez is here, Rep Nino, myself, Josh Acevedo, and Rep Maldonado Rocha will be joining in a few minutes. If we could get started with the Pledge of Allegiance. Rep Chavez? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so we have a pretty packed agenda. I'm going to go all over the agenda just to make sure that we get to some important items, and then also we have some visitors, so I want to make sure that we get to those items. So I will be very clear on what item we're going to. We're not going to go in order, just so we could be as efficient as possible today. But we could start with item number 1, since it's an easier one. I'm sorry, you just sat down. The approval of minutes for the Financial Oversight and Audit Committee meeting of June 17, 2025. Mr. Calderon.
Hello? Oh, there you go. Yeah, attached, you'll find the minutes for the last meeting that we had, so we just need to get it approved.
Okay, is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that passes 3-0. Okay, we'll move on to item number 3. Discussion on El Paso Firemen and Policemen's Pension Fund Portfolio Returns and Funding Status. Ms. Mack?
Thank you so much for attending. So we had a conversation a few months back about starting to incorporate opportunities for discussions with our pensions. Both provide an annual report to council on a regular basis. And so we thought it would be a good opportunity for us just to start having that conversation here. So if there's other things that we want to discuss that related to any of the pensions and understanding any of those standings, we would have this audience moving forward. So Mr. Tyler is up first.
Yes. There you go. I guess so.
Welcome, Mr. Grossman. It's good to see you.
How you doing, sir? Hi. Hello. I have a PowerPoint, I believe.
I think there it is.
Okay, nice. And I control it? That's what you said, Manda?
Yes.
There should be a thing right there on the podium.
There's a clicker there if you want it, you can use the key.
Just sit down.
There it is.
Okay, great. Thank you. My name is Tyler Grossman, the Executive Director of the El Paso Firemen and Policemen's Pension Fund. Thank you for having me. And I just wanted to go over really basics of what the fund is about and where we stand right now. What laws govern EEP, PPF? It's nice and full of P's and F's. We were created in 1920. The fire department was the first one to be established, but the police fund was established in 1932, and both were codified in state law in 33. The governing statute for our fund is Article 6243B, which is a Vernon statute, and we are also subject to Section 802 of the Government Code. Our funding sources are through city contributions, member contributions, and investment earnings. That is the only way that the fund receives money at this time. Well, it's the only way it will ever receive money. With those contributions, obviously the contributions from the city and the members go towards benefit payments, and we do draw from our investment earnings to also pay for benefits throughout the year. Right now, I believe we pay close to $100 million a year in benefits to the 2,000 retirees for El Paso. Approximately 85 million of those dollars stay in El Paso just through addresses of our retirees. And so they live here in El Paso, so that money is paid out and stays here in El Paso. So it's a good thing for our economy as well. The makeup of the board, we have 11 board members. There's 3 active firefighters, 3 active police officers, 3 mayor appointees, and 2 city manager appointees. Those were established in 2007 with the statute change that we did with the city. Can the state add funds? No, they can't. So we do not receive any support from the state or the federal government, and nor can they give us any money. So this is completely dependent on the city and the members, and investments is the only source of income for the fund. Currently, we are at $2.1 billion. We're up 100 million since last time we spoke, so that's a good thing. In 2000, that's in 2025, and in 2005, we were at $515 million. Obviously, investments have been the biggest success for the fund. Our return since inception has been 8.54. We're trying to keep a 7.75% return. But that has since the board has taken action to lower that to 7.5. And so that 7.5 will be recognized on the next valuation. And that is the assumed rate of return I'm talking about. Our assumed rate of return, it's what the fund and our consultants believe we will be able to return in the future. And since 2002, our assumed rate of return has been 7.75, and just in June of 25, the assumed rate of return has been lowered to 7.5. That's been a recommendation of our actuary, and it was also a recommendation of the city's actuary, who did an audit of our actuary this year. And so we took that recommendation, and it's also been a recommendation of the Pension Review Board to lower that assumed rate of return. Although, that being said, over the 5, 10, 15, 20, and 30-year period, we have beat that 7.75. But unfortunately, the past doesn't predict the future, and they believe that we can't make the 7.75 going forward. But time will tell. Amortization period, currently the 2024 evaluation, our amortization is at 16 years. That is, in essence, how long it will take, all things being equal, for the fund to be at 100%. Under current law, state law, the fund must be under 30 years. All funds must be under 30 years. The fund expects the amortization period to raise to 23 years on the 2026 valuation, and that will be primarily due to the 1.5% cost of living increase given to Tier 2. So we'll still be under the 30 years, but it will go up. That 23 will depend on how we finish the year on our investment returns. The fund's unfunded liability currently is debt on the city's books at $412 million. The 2026 valuation debt should rise. If our amortization period rises, the debt will rise with it. The lowering of the assumed rate of return also created a little bit of an increase in that unfunded liability and the addition of the Tier 2 COLA. How does the fund compare to other cities? That was a question asked earlier this year of how our the city's contribution and the members' contribution rank, I guess, against other cities of our size in the rest of Texas. As you can see, I think Austin Fire members pay a little bit more than the fire and police here in El Paso, but the Austin Fire City pays about 4% more than just over 4% more than the El Paso City. Other than that, El Paso's below. All of the members pay more than all the other members of the other cities, and obviously, as you can see, the cities pay more than what El Paso currently pays right now. Currently, we are required by state law. It's a government code 802.2011. We're required to develop a joint funding policy with the city that the fund and the city are supposed to vote on and sign off on and return to the Pension Review Board. Currently, we are not in compliance with that. We have sent our funding policy over to the city. We give it to the it's been with since I met with the comptroller at the time, which was Pat. Can't remember her last name. Do we know? Yeah. Yeah. Very nice. Tried to she worked on it with me. And we got, it's really just following the law as to how we fund the fund and how how benefits are created. And so, but it is something that the Pension Review Board, I go to the meetings, I just went to the last meeting, and they do give us a hard time every time because we're one of the only city and funds that don't have one. Dallas Fire and Police don't have one either, but they're suing each other over that, so I hope we don't sue each other over over a funding policy that can't be officially enforced. But it is something that I would love to work with the city on, and so that we can at least just lay the groundwork of how we get to 100% funded ratio. And that is it. There's just any questions. It was just an overview. I think, well, no, I thought I did have another slide in there. Nope, okay, yeah. And so I think the biggest thing is, like I said, investments have done extremely well. We're in the top decile for our 5, 10, 15, 20, and 30 years. Right now, I think we've been number one, if not number one, number two in investment returns over the last 20 years in the state of Texas. So that includes all the other funds that are out there. But I think the biggest thing for us is right now is not that we need money or that we are in desperate need of money because the fund's in any kind of bad shape. It's just a matter of laying the groundwork, I guess, that this fund and the city can agree on as to if something is needed, how are we going to go about doing it? And that's what where the funding policy comes in.
Rep. Chas?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for the presentation. I have a question regarding the debt.
Yes.
The city has done, a really good job at trying to reduce our debt and has been successful at it. Do you have a plan moving forward on how to possibly reduce that debt?
So the unfunded liability is, it can only be reduced through a lump sum, like it was in 2007 and 9. There was a lump sum, pension obligation bond that was given to the fund after the fund reduced benefits by $200 million. And so that was a way that we reduced it then, because at that time, I think the fund only had $600 million and we were $600 million underfunded. And so with the city and the fund pitching in $400 million, it got us to 80%. It was never meant to get us to 100%, and obviously it didn't get us to 100%. But the money was put to use in a good way, and obviously the benefits were reduced. We've been working to increase the benefits, but unfortunately, to your question, the only way is a lump sum or increased contributions. Or third way would be to try to go to a third tier for future first responders.
Okay. How many members contribute to the fund right now?
Just over 2,000.
Over 2,000. And do you have like a projection of how that will be moving forward?
So that solely depends on the city's hiring capabilities and retention capabilities. So we applaud the city when they're trying to hire, and we try our hardest to, that's why we changed some of the benefits that we've changed over the last couple years for Tier 2 to try to retain those first responders that are hired, because we need as many as we can get. It helps the fund when the staffing for fire and police grows. The hardest part has been, I joined the police department in 1994, and the police department is at the same staffing level it was in 1994. 1980, I think, is when we hit 1,000, or 1981, something like that. 1,000 people, 1,000 officers. And it's now at just over 11. So it's always been very difficult to increase that number.
And I think recruitment has improved and retention as well, from what I've heard in other presentations at council. So we're hoping that those numbers trend in the right direction.
So.
Yes.
The more the merrier, I tell you that. And that's, like I said, and that's an actuarial number. The more officers and firefighters there are, the better off the fund is.
Yes.
There's more people contributing to the fund.
And we are a safe city, and we thank you, of course, for your service and everyone that works in the department, because you do a great job in protecting us. So we appreciate that.
Thank you.
And I also think that your rate of return is really good. And so I congratulate you on that. And I don't have any further questions, but thank you.
I tell him I've been here over 20 years, and so it's really, it was all me, really. Mrs. Marin had been working on the funding policy for the city. I think the biggest thing would be to, and Robert Ash and I assisted on that process in hiring an actuary. I think the biggest thing, given the changes that happened, or as far as the interpretations of law that came about last year, I think we would have to come together and really discuss, okay, what can we do and what can't we do, as far as, you know, the legal routes, I guess, as far as how we are going to do, whether we have to go to the voters, whether, you know, we have to change state law, you know, the charter. There's a lot of moving parts that we would have to discuss.
Yeah. No, well, I'm grateful to have this conversation. I think it's the first step to that collaboration that's needed and open dialogue that we all could kind of give our input of what is it that we're going to do so that we could work together. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
So I have a few things. So, you know, over the last few months, there's a lot that has happened, and I am really hopeful, like Rep. Nino just said, you know, collaborate is such a key word for me as we start this process, is what I'm going to call it today. The way things have transpired over the last months, you know, I feel like that happened the way it did because there was a lack of a real process. There was a lot of conversations that were being had between you all and management, and then the lawyers were talking and then they couldn't agree, and then the actuaries were talking and they couldn't agree. So it put, at least from my perspective, it put me as a council person just in the middle of all of that. And I'm hearing like different stories, and they're very opposite to each other. So it makes it really difficult as decision makers to make a decision when we're getting total opposite information at the same time. So I really think this is a great way for us to start looking at this and really rolling up our sleeves and moving this work forward. I know that Ms. Mack committed back, I think it was in March or April, to really bring this to FOAC and have it live here for a good while until we kind of figure things out. And from what I'm seeing, you have the joint funding policy that is top of mind, that is really important. Are there any other low-hanging fruit that we can start tackling as we begin this real collaborative process to moving the work forward?
I think the funding policy will be the first step and last step, because it really will encompass what we discussed back last November and in March with the statute change. I mean, there has to be some kind of an agreement as to how this process will work and how we move forward. All other funds have this process with their cities. I know Austin Fire just changed their statute so that the city would fund them on an actuarial basis, and so that you know, this isn't new. You know, it's been done, and so a lot of the major cities, well, all the other major cities, except for Dallas Fire and Police, obviously are the only ones left and that are you know, hashing out legally, but we're the only ones that just don't have one. And so all the others have already hashed out how they're going to do it, and either incorporate it into statute. Well, all of them have incorporated in the statute.
Okay, so if we're able to, out of you coming to FOAC and doing the work through here, and then obviously things will go to council eventually, that will be a really transformative way to move forward, in your opinion?
Yes,
Okay.
I think so. Because
Okay.
I mean, it's a matter of using, I mean, in the funding policy is just, it's not, you have to use the laws that you have available to you. So there's no, it wouldn't be magical or anything like that. It's just about agreeing on how we're going to do it, or if there's changes, then how we're going to make those changes.
Okay, and this is a really important priority, I would say, for everybody on FOAC to really get to a good place here, because I mean, you guys, I love working with you guys. One, just on a personal level, but two, echoing what Rep. Chavez was saying earlier, you're keeping us safe, right? And we need to take care of our employees. That's something that's really big, not just for fire police, but just employees in general at the city to make sure that we are getting to a good place in terms of benefits and the long run and what comes after working and stuff like that. So I really do think we can get there, but I think if we take this collaborative approach and actually install a process, I'm really process and system driven. And when I don't see that, it's chaotic. It's almost like, well, let's just make up the rules as we go, and then we just encounter this other thing, and then we're making up a rule to get out of another rule and stuff like that. So I want to get to a better place in that sense. The other thing that really stood out to me was on slide 10, where you're comparing the different rates of other cities. One thing that is vital for this fund for me is to make sure that we are taking a conservative approach to seeing how the finances are going, right? You said that we're going from 16 to 23 years in 2 years. And that's mainly because of the COLA that we raised. And that I was happy to support that, and it was the right thing to do. But then if we're not looking at the numbers, if we're not getting the Robert Cortinas of the world to come and find money out of nowhere because he's so good at doing stuff, or just saying we're going to do this debt or whatever, we are not doing it in a smart way, right? So I know that at least some of these cities, what I'd like to see is how good are they financially? Because I think from what I recall, Dallas is not in the best place financially. And I think as people that get elected to these offices, we want to make sure that we are making good financial decisions. So I don't want to get to Dallas, but we could get there in a different way. Maybe a rockier path, right? But maybe one of the next times that you come, if we could look at that status of how their funds are doing compared to ours, I think that would be really helpful. And that kind of sets the baseline as to how we move forward.
Are you talking about how the pension fund is doing?
Yeah.
On their, okay.
Yeah.
Because I could tell you offhand right now.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so Austin Police was in bad shape. They changed their statute. The city went to the fund and said, we're going to change you to an ARC, which is actuarially determined contribution. So if an actuary says, hey, you know what, your investments didn't do as good this year, so the city's going to need to put in an extra 2%, then the city puts in an extra 2%. Now there are, like Houston has, I can't forget what they call it, a upper and a lower limit. So if it's within 2%, then the city will just raise it as 2%. But if it's 3, then the city will go up 2.5, but the members will go up 0.5. There'll be some sharing mechanism incorporated in that. And Houston Fire and Police and City were the first to incorporate that, because Houston employees was in bad shape and Houston Police were in real bad shape. Houston Fire has always been one of the top, because they had that actually determined contribution a long time ago. So they've always been at the top. San Antonio Fire Police, they have it in their statute that whatever the members put in, the city will put in double, no matter what. So if the members decide to go up 1%, then the city goes up 2%. And there's nothing the city can do about that. So they've been at 12 and 24 since the dawn of time. And so I think they're at 14 years amortization, so they've done extremely well just because their funding level, because of the contributions. Obviously, like I said, Dallas Fire and Police was on the verge of collapse. They're still at 36% funded, which is awful. Their amortization's infinite. That means they'll never pay off. They'll never be able to pay off the underfunding. It's so high, and that's because of what they did with their drop program. The accounting that they did and the investments they did were awful, and once they found out, then there was a run on the bank in essence, and so people just ran out with their money. This is in essence of like $2 billion they ran out like within months, and so it drove Dallas Fire and Police to the ground. Really, they had to step in and do some dramatic stuff. So they're still trying to climb out. I mean, the state went in and really changed their statute and really changed the makeup of the board and did all sorts of things, but they're still struggling to dig their way out of that bottom. Austin Fire was they were on their way towards being infinite. They'd already gone over the 45 years amortization, so they were the writing was on the wall for them. It was coming. So they went to the legislation this year. The kind of like us, they went on with their own bill, and the city went with their own bill, and then they got together and they worked out a joint bill that got passed. So the city now does their funding on an actuarial basis, and the Austin Fire got a fixed, like us, they got a fixed cost of living increase for their members, and they got a couple other changes in benefits. And so now that statute has passed, then now they'll be on level footing because they'll have an actually determined contribution. Fort Worth was in dire need. It's like a trend, right? So Fort Worth was in really bad shape about 10 years ago, and they were infinite, and it took a statute change as well. So they went through increase in contributions by the city, but they took benefits away. So they, in essence, they went to their second tier, like we did, 17 years ago or whatever it was. And so, and they've been pretty much just maintaining the status quo since. So they're in good shape now. So all of them are in good shape now that they've gone through the changes that they did, except for Dallas Fire and Police. They're the ones that are still kind of hurting. Yep.
That's good context. I appreciate it. Ms. Mack, in terms of this deliverable at the end on coming up with the joint funding policy, starting this process of having these conversations through FOAC today, is there a timeline that you might think is appropriate to kind of tell us about and see how we get there?
Sure, I think we can start with just talking about what the elements of those are. We do have an independent actuarial that's been helping us to work on some of these pension issues and really talk about how we get to a better place with those. I think just having an overall discussion and presentation by that actuarial might be helpful to provide context and then list out the questions that we sort of need to tackle. I know that we've been in the conversation, as Mr. Grossman said, for a couple of years, but really talking about what those things look like and what we would need to be doing in terms of a balance and what our fund looks like versus some others, and what are the key things that council would need to make considerations on. So I can commit to getting that in about 3 months. Okay, actuarial is planning to come next month to FOAC.
Next month?
Next month.
Through FOAC?
Yeah.
Through FOAC, okay.
Yeah, we can make a discussion item.
Okay, that works. I don't have any other questions. Is there any other questions from FOAC members? No? Okay. Well, thank you so much for this presentation. We'll continue the conversation and see where we go through FOAC. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
There is no action on this item, and I just wanted to state for the record that Representative Maldonado Rocha joined the meeting at 1:25 p.m. Let's move on to item number 6. Discussion and action on the results of the Parks and Recreation Department Park Usage Permit Audit A 2025-01.
You weren't kidding. You were going to move it around. Let me find it. Hold on. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Edmundo Calderon, Chief Internal Auditor for the City of El Paso. What I've done here, I took the original PowerPoint presentation that we prepared last month, and we've added some additional information to it. So let me go through it pretty quick. I know Pablo's here from the Parks Department, so is Richard Bristol. So let me just try to get through this pretty quick because we added a bunch of data. So hopefully that'll clear up some of the questions that I saw on the last FOAC meeting that will kind of put everybody at ease, okay? Okay, the objectives of the audit were to determine if the Parks and Recreation Department had the following: has an established process for issuing parks usage permits, has established criteria for the need of a park permit, usage permit, has policies and procedures for the issuance of a park usage permit, and is charging the permit fees accurately, and is following up and enforcing park usage permits. Okay. The scope of the work that we did at the Parks Department was from September 1, 2023 to August 31st, 2024. We reviewed the departmental policies and procedures. We obtained an understanding of the open park space permitting process. We conducted interviews with the park personnel and selected a sample of issued open park space permits. Okay. Finding 1. If you remember the original report, because we also edited the report, had a term spontaneous events. We've changed that term to call it an unpermitted event, okay, to make it a little bit more clear, because I kind of saw a lot of people were a little confused with what spontaneous event meant. So now I think we've hit it right on the bullseye with unpermitted events, okay? So event organizers are not obtaining an open park space permit for unpermitted events. Events that do not follow the permitting process are not monitored. There are no park procedures to identify unpermitted events, and there are no dedicated resources to follow for the identification and monitoring of these unpermitted events. Okay. Our recommendation on that finding was that the Parks and Recreation Department should conduct community outreach to inform the public of the permitting process, and the department should also work with other city departments to help monitor park areas for potential events. Okay, here was the response. I don't know, Chairman, do you want me to read the entire response, or can we just? It's pretty lengthy. That's
I think you could summarize what it is.
Okay. And then the Parks Department, they're gonna, in partnership with the Communication and Public Affairs, the Parks and Recreation Department will develop and implement a communication plan to include social media campaigns. Okay, so they're gonna do that, and then there's a little bit more. And then additionally, the Parks Department began coordination with this El Paso Police Department and the Code Enforcement Department to enhance the response to unpermitted events in our parks and recreation areas. Okay. During the next fiscal year, Parks and Recreation and Code Enforcement will be reviewing the feasibility of adding a park ambassador program. Which I think it's a very good idea. And on there. Okay, so that's finding 1. So I don't know if anybody has any questions, or you want me to continue with the report? Continue with the report? Okay, then we had finding 2, and here's why we added a bunch of information into the body of the report. The following areas were added by the Internal Audit Department: a table listing the 13 municipal codes applicable to the Parks and Recreation permitting process, and we looked at, there were 13 of those. We also created a table listing 14 parks ranked by the number of permits issued and the total dollar amount of the permit fees collected. Lincoln Park was number 1 when it came to dollars collected. Okay, so that's why the review really focused on that park, because the dollars were just way off the board. They were, Lincoln Park by far collects a lot more money. And then we also there were 9 permits during the review period. So we actually broke those down. I thought it was appropriate to actually list the 9 events that were held during the review period. And those 9 events actually were charged $6,300 in permit fees. Okay. And then additional to the finding, there's the current application requires a 30 days advance notice, and we actually reviewed those 9 applications that came in, and what we found that 5 permit applications were received less than 30 days before the event date, and 4 permits were received more than 30 days before the event date. So you can kind of see it was kind of almost split right down the middle. Our recommendation was that the Parks and Recreation Department should create a policy to enforce the 30-day permit application requirement. And here is their response. And the Parks and Recreation Department reviewed and will update the administrative guidelines to clarify when permit applications for the use of open space and sports areas require a minimum of 30 days. The following updates are scheduled for completion by October 2025. So they're going to update their permitting process, as you can see by the response. And then they're going to start creating more requirements for the 30-day application period that's currently required. And they're going to actually add to it that require the 30-day events application will be required for large events of 100 plus participants, and 2, when street closures and traffic control are requested in open space and sports fields. A minimum of 2 weeks advance application will be required for use of any facilities such as recreational centers and aquatic areas. And then lastly, so with regards to the enforcement of unpermitted areas, staff will bring forward a code amendment to Title 13.24 City Parks and Recreation Area to mirror Title 9.40 Health and Safety. This will provide consistency and clarity in the provisions of enforcement authority under the new Code Enforcement Department and any relevant penalties to any persons violating the provision of the chapter. So our conclusion on this report, the Parks Department met the audit objectives as follows. They do have documented policies and procedures for the issuance of park usage permits. They properly review and issue park usage permits to the public. And third, they properly charge and collect fees for the issuance of the park usage permits. Parks Department did not meet the audit objectives in the following. Unpermitted events are not identified and monitored by staff. They just don't have a way of doing it. Permit applications are accepted less than 30 days before an event. And third, there is no policy for the enforcement of unpermitted events. The requested action that we're asking is to accept the results of the Park and Recreation Department Parks Usage Permit Audit and forward the audit report to the City Council for action.
Thank you, Mr. Calderon. I have questions or discussion, from Representative Maldonado Rocha.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you, Chairman. I appreciate it. Hello, Mr. Calderon.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing today?
Fine.
Good. I just have a couple of questions on your findings.
Sure.
And it may include Mr. Where's Pablo? Is he here? Yes, Mr. Caballero's response as well. So, unpermitted event versus a spontaneous event. That's the new definition.
Yeah, the new
right?
term I
Okay.
decided to use.
So my question is there a penalty, or in this recommendation, is there a penalty that is being implemented for less than 30 days, or what's the 30 days the purpose of?
I'll let Pablo explain that
Okay,
one.
thank you.
So what we would like to move forward on is clarifying when you need to have
Right.
a permit 30 days in advance. I think one of the comments I had when we were here before is that if someone is trying to make an effort to get a permit, that we don't want them to be penalized if they're not doing it within a 30-day period. And so the staff is going to redefine when 30 days is required. It's going to be closure of streets, over 100 people. That really requires some type of coordination with other departments. And then we will change the code to allow for under 30 days for the smaller events that might happen. And I hope that that gives people an opportunity to say, you know, I'm going to reach out to parks and let them know. And it won't be that, oh, I've just missed a deadline and why bother?
Right.
So that was our thinking.
Okay, thank you for that. Ms. Mack, I appreciate it. So then the second question would go toward, it says that there's going to be a code amendment.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct, ma'am.
Okay. And what is the code amendment going to look like? Have you devised that amendment?
Okay, we're gonna start working with the Code Enforcement Department because it's a share code.
Right.
That way they have the authority to start dealing with these issues at the parks.
So are they going to be citing individuals at these unpermitted events?
We don't
Is
know what
that-
the penalty is right now.
So that's you're coming up
but
with kind of the
yeah,
fee schedule
we're moving forward
penalty?
to develop something for the code enforcement.
Okay,
department.
so then here's the follow-up question to that I would ask that you include it. And I know because there's been several people that have reached out regarding these unpermitted events that happen at Alban Park.
Yes, ma'am.
And there probably needs to be some type of traffic enforcement there, but there isn't. Who gets cited? Right? Because there you have over 100 people that are there. Code enforcement shows up and they start handing out tickets. So I would encourage that we look to see who gets cited for that. I don't know what that looks like right now, because to me that seems a little chaotic to go out and, have 100 different citations going out to different people if they're just parked or they're just hanging out, or, how would that look like? So I'd encourage you to look at that as well. I'm not saying that you haven't already, but I would encourage that to happen. I know there was also a situation that happened actually at Memorial Park, where it did need some type of traffic enforcement because neighbors couldn't get to their homes. And I would say that, the option to that is to also, I don't know, maybe possibly look at social media, right?
Exactly.
To look to see what that is, what that looks like. But I look forward to seeing what the findings are and what your recommendations are to those violations and the fee structure that you'll be providing.
Yes, we'll do,
Okay.
ma'am. And that's why we're working with PD and code enforcement closely to come up with the best answer for that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Thank
what
you
we're
so
doing
much.
right now, ma'am, is staff are tracking social media, when
Right.
possible. And if we see that somebody is planning an event, and Album happened to be the one that I can recall, it's like a Father's Day event or something, we reached out to the organizer to make sure they understood the process.
Okay.
It usually is not going to be the team going out ticketing everybody. We're always looking for the organizer.
Okay.
So from a public safety perspective, though, you're usually trying to identify the organizer, and generally that citation is usually delivered after the event. You're never going to have our officers or others go in a very disruptive way that could lead to a riot or something,
Right.
unintended consequence.
Yes.
And so we have gone to folks' home after the fact, but they always are trying to find the organizer, have a conversation. A lot of times they're out there verifying that they have a permit with the organizer, that they've gone through the traffic pieces and those pieces. What this is going to allow, though, is we don't have staff who are driving around the city in the way that, code enforcement or police department would. And so it allows for us to be able to utilize the code enforcement people who are out there. Even the recommendation that the team has with an ambassador, I don't know how effective that's going to be. With the small number of people we might be able to hire, it's not in the budget this year.
Right.
And so what I'm asking PD to help me understand what we might be able to do is we're really launching their drone program and really trying to utilize drones. And if we have calls that are coming in, we can quickly figure out what's going in an area without having to dispatch staff from across town, which gives us better eyes and ears without necessarily having to redirect folks. So I think there's lots of opportunity to really utilize the technology that we have and some of the information that's coming forward, and the benefit of mirroring the code, the health and safety pieces, the fees and the penalties are actually in that piece of the code. So I think those things will come together, but obviously there's still some work to do.
Thank you, Ms. Mack. I appreciate it. And I just have one final question. Going to the Park Ambassador Program, I had a situation that happened on Saturday that the constituent reached out to 311, but there was nobody that could help with the situation at Parks. So is that something that you're going to be looking forward, like to cover? Weekend coverage, is that part of that Park Ambassador Program?
That's something we can keep in mind, ma'am.
Okay.
And that's why we're trying to develop the correct way to do it. But again, sometimes 311 should give out the constituent other numbers so they can reach out directly to us. They
Yeah.
didn't do that.
No, that might be an education piece, where they just need to, just a reminder. But in this particular situation, the constituent was not given an option.
Okay.
They were just told that they couldn't help them, and they didn't really know what to do at that point. So that's why I want to make sure that piece of it is also covered when you have constituents that come across these events, that they are, maybe it's just something to just remind the 311 call taker to say, hey, when this happens, just do this piece of it. So that's part of the holistic kind of revamp that's going along with the Park Ambassador program.
No, yeah, we'll do, ma'am.
Thank you so
And-
much.
And every time someone calls 311, they actually ask what the problem is, and then they give out specific numbers if it's irrigation, if it's something else.
Okay, thank you,
It's way too
Pablo.
complicated. I've heard this from several people.
Yeah.
I think we have several areas of our operation, like they won't dispatch to parkland management, but they
Right.
will dispatch to other areas. And so we're going to work on cleaning up some of those pieces. My team and I have been having discussions about, I think we just signed a contract. I don't know if Mario's here. We've just signed a contract using AI and some of those automated pieces that we think are going to be much more effective. We've had issues and concerns with scripts and other things that we know we need to work on. And so we know
Thank
all
you.
of that needs to come into play before we start talking about a campaign for folks. That
Right.
Those systems need to work.
Thank you so much, Ms. Mack, and thank you, Pablo, for the clarification
Thank you,
on that.
ma'am.
I appreciate it.
Representative Chavez?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Calderon, for your presentation. I also agree with Representative Maldonado Rocha that whatever we decide to do through code enforcement, we have to make sure that it's enforceable, because it's almost like the pool parties or, other things like that, that we end up showing up, but then who do we actually cite, or how do we actually make something enforceable? So it's just something to keep in mind. So that was something I was going to bring up. On your slide number 8, Mr. Calderon, when you talk about Lincoln Park being ranked number 1, and then you go to slide 9 and you talk about 5 permits and then 4 permits, were those permits directly from Lincoln Park, or those from?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you know how many total number of permits we give out on a yearly basis?
Yes,
Or-
ma'am, we have that information. It's in the report. How many?
280, 286, thank you, Pablo. So, my mental math is not that great. I'm not Mr. Cortinas here. So 4 divided by 286, so that's like 1%? Wait, not 4, 9, right? 5 permits plus, so you've basically looked at 9 permits altogether
Yes, ma'am.
from 286?
It was from 218.
Oh, okay,
In our population
your-
was 218.
okay. So 9 of 218.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm doing my math here. Okay, so that's 4%? Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Well, when you look at it that way.
Yes, I'm just,
Yeah.
I like to see all the numbers and percentages.
I
It makes
get
me
it.
easier.
I know exactly
Yes.
where you're going. I'm waiting with my answer.
Okay. Do you think this is an accurate, just description of what's going on citywide?
Yes, ma'am.
Why?
Let me tell you. Because when we looked at this, yes, you're looking at it by incidents, by
Yes.
permit numbers.
Yes,
When we did the analysis, when I did the analysis in my office, I did it by dollars. I was looking
Okay.
at dollars. So when you have those 218 permits that were done, they totaled a little over $20,000.
okay,
So when we were dissecting the data and sorting it out, we noticed that Lincoln Park had 9 permits, yes, 9. But they had $66,300 of it, which was of the $20,000. So that percentage is very high. 6,000
6,300.
out of 20,000
All
were
right.
Lincoln Park.
Okay, so let me do that. then.
The audit report says.
Thank you.
30.99%.
Yeah, 31 and a half. That's what my math shows.
30%.
Okay,
So that's how I broke
Okay.
down the population and the selection.
Okay, and just because these audits really help us determine how to move forward, and so I want to make sure that we're not missing something that could possibly be important to other
Sure.
areas of our community, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so, and we just spoke about fee schedules, and Ms. Mack weighed in on that. Is there any need maybe to do a different fee schedule depending on the size of event? And maybe if it's over 30 days or less than 30 days, maybe charge a different fee because of the timeliness of things? I'm not sure.
We were planning to take this year to really take a deep dive into all the fee schedules for Parks and Recreation in particular. One, we want to ensure that as we talk about one of these events or any event or any activity we have, when we are required to have 100% cost recovery, that we're doing so. I think in a lot of cases, we haven't looked at these fees for more than 10 years, and so I think that will be something that we'll be bringing forward for you all to consider. We also, want to make sure that we're looking at affordability for the community, so we'll
Yes.
look for some balance in how we talk about some of those pieces, but we will absolutely be bringing that back to you all probably no later than February or so as we're getting ready for your retreat.
Okay. I mean, I would like to hear from Mr. Caballero if there's any other information he could provide from his experience in this department that maybe is not specific to Lincoln Park, right? That could be useful going forward as we come up with the ambassador program and other things. I don't know.
Before Pablo comes up, in the report, I also wanted to emphasize that we actually broke down the 9, Representative Chavez. So if you go
Okay.
on the audit report, you'll see what 9 events took place, which is very interesting
Oh, okay.
analysis. Because, I know we have a lot of conversation has happened over car shows, So if you look at the data, the highest event at Lincoln Park, which actually generated $3,685, was a religious event. I thought that was very interesting.
Thank you. Yeah,
Pablo?
thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am. I think there's a lot of things that we can look into this, and what actually it's a concern is that we need to enforce the city codes and municipal codes citywide. So this is why we want to bring up the ambassador to help us determine what do we need to improve and what do constituents need to follow as guidelines and rules so that they won't be able to break those violations.
Right. And I think that's important because we don't know, even though Lincoln Park is bringing in 30% of the fees, we don't know what we're missing out on in different areas of the city through social media or other types of engagement through our ambassador program or other things. We could really be increasing these fees citywide
Exactly.
in a way that, of course, is accessible for our community.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any other input, Pablo, that you'd like to
No,
bring
not
to
at
us?
this moment, ma'am.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Calderon.
Thank you.
Representative Nino?
Thank you. One super quick question, Ms. Mack. These fees fund what exactly? Is it for staff? Is it for police presence? Is it for,
It rolls back up into the general fund,
okay,
and then it's allocated to departments. So, for example, this year, Parks is at around $5 million. They're scheduled to bring in about $5 million in fees, but they're like, what, a $50 million budget? Yeah, so it really goes back to the general fund to help offset. So our goal is always to make sure that when we talk about these fee schedules, we're looking for cost recovery for the city,
okay.
particularly when we talk about these type of special events. And so that's something we're going to be looking at. Even when you think about the unpermitted events, I'm pretty sure that there's probably additional trash pickup or other things that were related to those items that we're probably not capturing as additional costs because there was some type of function that we didn't, have on the books, and we're not sort of capturing that cost. So I think there's going to be an opportunity to sort of look at some of those pieces and really help us to be able to ensure that we're doing a better job of bringing in the revenue that should help us to be able to offer even more service or offset the increased use across the city.
No, thank you for that, and I like that you mentioned about the trash. I think it's important that if there's a fee collected for a certain park, and we could turn around and really invest some of those fees into that park to maintain it or whatever, it will be extremely important for us. So thank you. Thank you. No questions.
So, Mr. Calderon, thank you for updating the audit. I know in May there was a little confusion on this, and so this makes it a bit more clear in terms of why you went the direction that you did with this particular audit. And
Yes.
I think the main reason that you're kind of saying is that you looked at dollar amounts rather than permanent amounts, and that's kind of what your auditor senses were more inclined to look at, right?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
I think one thing that I believe we talked about a few weeks ago is the signatures that need to be collected when they're getting a permit. I didn't see anything about the signatures throughout your audit, and I know you had some thoughts on that. So when somebody gets a permit, they need to go door to door and ask people to sign on. And we had talked about some way of enforcing that. Do you remember that? That 50% need to sign on, and then you said, how can they enforce that?
You didn't talk, I don't think you talked to me.
Yeah,
about that.
we talked
I
about
did?
it. Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah, so you're familiar with getting the signatures for, like, let's say Lincoln Park. They're gonna get.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it because I talked to Pablo about it, but I don't remember talking.
Yeah.
My mind's probably going.
Yeah. So and you brought up some good points, and so that's why I thought maybe you could kind of discuss that, because I didn't see anything make it into the audit report on that, and I don't see anything about the management response, like integrating that at all.
Okay, Pablo.
Sir, remember, parks doesn't require the signatures. The ones that require the signatures, it's the one-stop shop
Okay.
through the traffic control and the closures. So it's not a parks requirement. That's why it's not on the audit.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, I forget that you go to the boss to kind of get those signatures, and then, but it kind of works in that sense, right? And I think that kind of also adds to the confusion of what the public needs to do in order to get a permit, because obviously they see parks, and you think, okay, I go to parks to get everything, but it's the boss, and then the boss is sending people over, so it makes it a little bit muddled. And so if we could kind of clarify that would be really helpful. One other thing that, just kind of hearing from what my colleagues are saying, I really agree with everything that's been said. The park ambassadors, are they going to be able to take vehicles home, city vehicles home? Because I know that has kind of been an issue that was taken away at some point and could have been used to help with events on the weekends. So is that part of the plan?
Well, since the park ambassador will be a part of code enforcement, that's something we need to discuss with Chief Alvarado, the director, to see if they're gonna be taking the vehicles home.
Okay, I think that's really important, because obviously I think most of the things that are happening on Saturday and Sunday, and then you run into the issue that Rep. Maldonado Rocha came up with. So if we could have them in code enforcement cars, that makes them look even more official at that point, right? And then the second thing is, well, they're out there on Saturdays and Sundays when most of these events are happening. So if somebody calls 311, they're going to say, okay, we're sending code enforcement out, and they have a better answer at that point.
Exactly. Those are being discussed with Chief Alvarado, and of course, the main reason for this is to go during nights and weekends.
Okay.
So our thinking was that they would be scheduled, just as we were talking about, our work in the entertainment district, that's a shift, for staff, and so their hours would primarily be concentrated within those type of, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and maybe in the summer, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because we do see things happening earlier. So it really was about having those folks dedicated within those teams. They would have the connection with the rest of code enforcement. So if there really was an issue or concern, or somebody needed to be dispatched, you wouldn't be limited to just one or two people, which gives us a multiplier effect also in terms of how we would do that.
Okay. And I guess the next question would be, can these people do traffic mitigation? Because I do remember what Representative Maldonado Rocha brought up at Memorial, I texted you about traffic kind of going in a weird way on Grant Street specifically when that event was happening. And you looked into it, it looked okay, it was all good, but more like, can these ambassadors be trained to do some traffic mitigation? Or if people are going to get a permit over 100 people, they have to have security at that point, and they have to pay for security, 5 or 10 or 15 people. Some of them are private, some of them are PPD. But at that point, can we make them get officers, 2 officers, let's say, just for traffic mitigation alone, to make sure that everything is going to flow how it needs to flow? Can that be part of this?
I think we need to bring that back to you all, because I do think that as we talk about the size of some of these events, I think the cost for the person who is offering that is going to get really high. So really understanding, maybe we're very specific about which parks, and maybe we're very specific when we know that there's a traffic type issue, so it's not every single location. And I think it just makes it a little bit more affordable for people, because I know typically we've gone with off-duty because it becomes a bit more affordable for folks. So we will bring that all back to you, because if it's an ordinance, we will do our due diligence and make sure we develop those plans as we go forward. But we'll take into consideration the parking piece, and we might be able to do through training opportunities, if we're saying we're requiring them to do off-duty, that they also need to be doing a little bit more in terms of the parking situation.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense. And more than just saying, okay, specific parks, I think it's more of the specific events, right? Because I think what we're kind of looking at this or alluding to is car shows and the amount of traffic they bring just because they're bringing their cars, and it's the show of it all, right? As opposed to a 300-person family reunion at Memorial Park that they're just going to park and do their thing, right? So I think looking at the amount of people for an event, but also what kind of event is this, and are we going to make them carry that traffic person to make sure the traffic is not going to be disrupted? So if you could bring that back, I would really appreciate that. And then overall, what I'm kind of thinking here is we need to have some sort of just rules of the game here on how to get the permit. Are you going to go talk to parks? Are you going to go to the boss? What kind of insurance do you need to carry for an amount of people that is over 100 people, right? Just to make sure that if there's any destruction at our parks, we are able to go to that insurance provider and get that claim, and then we are going to go fix whatever messed up at that park. So if we can make that more clear to people, that's important. I don't think we can really do that through a social media campaign.
Okay.
And so that's where I'm getting a little hesitant, where I'm like, okay, that's fine, do the social media campaign, but I think this needs to be more of a robust answer to this. And some things that I've been kind of looking at is businesses need to really be informed about this. And I don't know if that is something that can come from the city, but I'll give you an example. Old Sheepdog has an owner, but then the business leases from that owner. So when Old Sheepdog has gotten notices, it's gone to the owner. The owner doesn't necessarily talk to the business person that is leasing the space. So Old Sheepdog has not known that some of these events are happening. So how can we make sure that the businesses will be informed of any sort of disruption, but then at the same time our neighborhood associations? I think that is a really clear path forward to actually getting the whole community to understand what is happening. So if your management response could be edited to include something along those lines, I would appreciate it.
Okay. Yes, sir, will do. And this is why the signatures are so important, because they go through every business and every neighborhood that it's involving that special event.
Yeah, and I think the signatures are still missing something, right?
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
if you come back and you go to the boss, the person at the boss is not going to have an understanding, or maybe they will, but some may not, of what businesses are in that area, right? So if Parks or somebody can say, this is the footprint and these are all the businesses that are listed here on top of all the residences, then they know, okay, well, we got the signature from Old Sheepdog, for example, at Lincoln Park. But there's something that is missing there to make sure that everybody is being notified of this disruption that is coming.
Okay, we'll work on something and bring it back to you, sir.
Okay. Are there any other questions, comments? Okay, this item is posted for action. Is there a motion? There's a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, this passes unanimously 4-0. Okay, let's move on to item number 7. Discussion and action to retain an external auditing firm to undertake audits included and added to fiscal year audit plans, which cannot be conducted by the internal audit department staff. So I asked for this to be posted on the agenda. As you recall, a few FOAC meetings ago, we had Mr. Calderon. He had an issue. He had to recuse himself from the audit. And as we were kind of talking through it, we kind of realized that even if him as the chief internal auditor recused himself, his whole department should be recused at that point. So we worked to put this on here to kind of put out an RFP to get an external auditing firm for when situations like this occur. And it could be a recusal. It could be things that maybe the internal audit department might want to do with the council and staff. It's similar to Ms. Mack and Ms. Neiman. They have their outside counsel when needed. And so I know this is not the same thing as having outside counsel as lawyers, but more having this outside firm being able to come in when situations like these arise. I don't know if there's questions on this or comments. Rep. Chavez?
Thank you, Chairman. So you're saying that it would be for recusals and what other situations?
So any other audits, so for example, one thing that we have discussed at length quite a bit is Mr. Calderon used to do P-card audits for the mayor and the council. And 2 years ago, the voters put Mr. Calderon under the FOAC. And so at this point, I think it would put him in a very weird situation to audit his bosses. So if we continue doing these audits, which is fine, we should do these audits, then we're able to get that external firm to come in and say, okay, we're going to audit the mayor and council P-card audits.
Okay, and would FOAC vote on these audits, or how would they be selected?
Yes, so every audit would be brought to the FOAC to make sure that we have an understanding of where, if we have the funding to do it. Mr. Calderon said you have about $100,000 that you have carried over. So that's kind of the budget that we'll start with, and we'll budget that in. I don't foresee this being something that we are going to be doing all the time, but when the need arises.
So, okay, thank you, Chairman. So what would the RFP look like? I don't know who can answer that question.
I don't know.
Like the language, since it's going to be on an as-needed basis, or if it's going to be, what would an RFP like?
I think Mr. Calderon mentioned that in the past, he had an on-call. So we kind of look towards having a person who understands the range. They would be we would bring them on board when we're actually executing. And so you would have the ability to be able to do X number of hours against that contract for that specific purpose.
Okay, just to make sure that we select the appropriate person or company to do this.
We had a contract many years ago for an outside auditing firm to assist us. It expired and we never chose to renew it. But we could model it after something like that, like we did that one. And
Okay.
we actually used it when we audited the Chihuahua baseball stadium, when we were auditing that contract with
Okay.
the tenant.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification. That's all. Thank you,
And
Chairman.
Ms. Neiman, can you kind of also touch on the legal side of this, on the importance of having an external audit firm on call?
Yes, you mentioned it in part of your discussion is because the internal audit function reports is appointed by the whole council, it's cleaner to have an external auditor perform certain functions. simply to keep that independence and to avoid any conflict of interest. There could be other instances in which an audit can arise that the council or FOAC or Ms. Mack recommends that it be handled externally.
Thank you. Any other questions on this?
One quick question. Thank you.
Rep. Nino?
Thank you, Chairman. So, quick question in regards of selecting which audits go into this external firm. Will it be presented and then we make the recommendation as to this should be forwarded to what would that process look like?
Yeah, I think if we see, for example, as we're coming up with the fiscal year 26 audit plan, if we kind of see something as FOAC members that we think that might present a conflict for the internal audit department to do, I think we could suggest it at that point, because I think as we have a yearly audit plan, it gives us the ability to understand what is going to be done throughout that year, right?
Yes.
And so if we look at that and somebody has that question, and we have that discussion on saying maybe this should be referred to the external, then we could go from there.
Okay.
My idea right now is I will list those outside audits in the audit plan, but I'll show them as 0 hours. That
Okay.
we won't, the internal audit department will not be booking any hours on that. So I'll just, like, for example, the P card, we'll put the P card audit of mayor and city council, and we'll just put a 0 on there as hours that we're gonna use. But it'll be on the approved audit plan. Just an idea, is what I'm thinking, how we could make sure they're scheduled, and then the FOAC will know, here's one that we need to, outsource.
Question, and how would we know how many hours would be required, for example, for those audits? I know that you're saying you're going to put 0 hours, but would you be able to possibly share with us possibly how many hours?
I could give you an estimate what I would think that firm would use, because I would base it on what we would do.
Okay.
So it just depends on the objectives and the scope of work we're going to do on the engagement will determine the amount of hours we would use, or you would need to contract out.
Okay. Yeah, I think that would be a better understanding so that we know how to move forward with that. But okay, thank you. No further questions.
It's pretty common in a lot of large cities to have that type of supplement. I've just come back from spending the weekend with about 30 city managers, and so this is one of the topics I brought up. And so I think I can definitely get the models for you all if you want to see that, and what their process is in terms of how they choose, just so you'll have some background on how we look at this. And so when you're thinking about the audit plan, you'll have some sense of where you think those are best utilized.
Okay. Rep. Chavez?
Thank you, Chairman. And for me, in addition to the hours, just to make sure that we always stay within budget, so whatever that's going to look like, I would appreciate, Ms. Mack, if you could come back with something like that so we could plan ahead and make sure that we're always staying within budget.
Yeah, I can give you hours right now, but I couldn't give you dollars because I wouldn't know what the firm is going to charge on their hourly rate.
Yeah, and I think that's where we could really have some sort of listing on, these are the 3 audits that we want to do. Can we afford them this year, or do we need to prioritize from there in terms of dollar amounts?
Exactly.
Sure, I know you have 2 right now, the P card and the community development
Great.
audit. Those 2, I'll go ahead and put them on the audit plan. I'll put 0 hours, but I'll put a little asterisk in there what I estimate amount of hours it would take a firm to do it.
Okay.
Thank you.
And you have one other thing. As we get this RFP out, can we have the ability to interview the audit firms that apply as FOAC?
So there's a few ways of doing it. I would prefer that we hear back from Ms. Mack on how other cities do it in terms of ranking and rating, simply because the audit would come back to you all, and I don't know that the council would be the best group to be grading the audit for an award of a solicitation, since it's awarded by the whole council and you are members of council. So we would create a different group of people to do that portion of it. There's also, under Ms. Mack's authority, the ability to hire external consultants up to $50,000, which we use out of our office when we need to hire outside counsel, and she does that as well. So it doesn't need to be this complicated or difficult. It's a matter of having auditors on a list and say we can hire them at this amount. She signs off on the contract and ready to go. It's not
Okay.
that cumbersome. And it's not going to happen as often as we hire outside counsel.
Okay, that brings some clarity to it. I think the important thing is we just need to have somebody that can do many different audits, right? And it's not just like that financial background, right? Okay, so I'm glad we're on the same page there. Okay, any other discussion on this item? This one's posted for action. Any motion? There's a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, this passes unanimously, 4-0. And then let's go to item number, Ms. Mack, is number 2 a shorter item?
So item number 2 is the second pension that we have. So
Okay.
Mr. Robert Ash and his team is here to present the annual report.
Okay, let's move to item number 2. City of El Paso Employee Retirement Trust Annual Update.
Good afternoon, Robert Ash, Executive
afternoon.
Director, Legal Advisor, City of El Paso Employees Retirement Trust. I'm joined today by Adrian Sanchez, who's our Deputy Executive Director, and the purpose of our presentation is to bring you up to date. It's a presentation that we've updated slightly from the time we went with the mayor, the city manager, Mr. Cortinas, and so this is really to give you a flavor of what's going on with a non-uniform pension plan. Mr. Sanchez.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Adrian Sanchez. I'm the Deputy Executive Director. So as Mr. Ash mentioned, the presentation before you is one that we've presented to the city manager and the mayor back in April. We made some minor adjustments for performance, but other than that, it's stayed mostly the same. A little bit of history behind this presentation. So it's part of our trust strategic plan to present annually to the city manager and the mayor a status of our fund, and we've been doing that for several years. Our fiscal year coincides with the city's fiscal year, and so our process after we finish our fiscal year at the end of August, we hire an actuary, we hire an external auditing firm to do our reporting. Our board gets those reports approved around the January timeframe, and then we're required to post those reports to the State Pension Review Board by the end of February, and then we start reaching out to the mayor and the city manager to see if we can meet. Usually we meet about around March or April. As part of our meeting with Ms. Mack and Mr. Cortinas this year, they suggested that we come and present to the FOAC, and so that's what brings us here today. So here's a quick agenda of what we're going to be going over. So an overview of the trust, how we're set up, some recent portfolio returns. Some of those are what has been updated. Our financial audit and our actuarial evaluation, some highlights of those. Some comments about our cost of living, our COLAs for our retirees, and a conclusion. So unlike the police and fire who just spoke with you, we are governed by a city ordinance. Chapter 2.64 of the municipal code is what governs our plan. So the council actually has authority to make changes to the pension fund, where you're not going to the state to make those changes. Representative Acevedo, you'll remember that recently we made some changes. We don't typically make changes very often, but we did make some changes last year to update some language for disability retirements and some other things. No dollar amount. It didn't affect the fund in any dollar amount. It was just some cleanup. So we don't do that very often. The municipal code also governs our contributions. So we have a fixed rate contribution. Our employees, they give 8.95% of their biweekly gross earnings, and employers, the city, which includes the water utility, it's important to remember that, they did give 14.05% of biweekly gross earnings. We do have two tiers. Our second tier was established in September 1st of 2011. We have our assets, a list of our assets under management there, and we updated this with June numbers, but you'll see going back to 2021, and everything except for June is audited numbers. You'll see that back in 2021 we did finish over $1 billion, and then we kind of took some hits after that, and we've been climbing back since then. So our June number, our finals as of June was $1,029,000,000. Interesting point about this slide. So back when we met with the city manager, the mayor, and Mr. Cortinas, we were kind of in the midst of some economic downturn. It was in April. At that point in April, it did not look very good, and so the number that we were actually reported to them was $980 million as of the end of March, and then it further took a further downturn in the middle of April. By the end of April, the month of April kind of ended up as a wash, and you can see that we've kind of climbed ourselves out of that hole. So we were kind of reporting to the mayor and city manager that it wasn't looking like we were going to make our 7.25% return at that point. Thankfully, it's looking like we're on the right track. I'll knock on wood that we continue in the right direction because it's just been so volatile. But it does look like we're going to make that 7.25% this year. Our membership count, we have a little over 4,700 participants and a little over 5,000 retirees. And like I mentioned, that's both the city employees, to include the water utility and some other small organizations, including ourselves. We are not city employees at the trust, but we do get to participate in the pension plan. This is our board makeup. So some of the information is outdated on this slide. We didn't update it, but we have 4 elected members that are elected by the participants of the plan. So we have our board chair, Robert Studer, our vice chair, Carl Rimkis, Karina Brascala from Economic Development, and Isara Valdez at the Tax Department. The rest of the members or the trustees are appointed by the mayor. So you'll see some information there about expiring terms. That's what was not updated, but the good thing is that everybody that was on those expiring terms was reappointed or reelected, so the makeup stayed the same as the time that we last presented to the city manager and the mayor. And our trustees are really good. We don't have any problems with not making quorum. You know, we have monthly meetings, and we've never, and it's been a very long time where we had to cancel a meeting due to quorum. So our trustees are very loyal to being there. We have several standing committees. We have Administrative Services Committee, Executive Committee. This particular committee is the only one that has non-trustees. Both myself and Mr. Ash sit on this committee. We meet monthly to go over the agenda before the board meeting. We have a Facilities and Maintenance Committee. We do have our own building at 1039 Chelsea Street, so they meet every now and then when we have needs to discuss. Our Financial Oversight Committee kind of mirrors what you all are doing here. They go over our audit and actuary every year. They typically meet, I don't know, maybe about 3 or 4 times a year. And then the one that has probably the heaviest lifting, the Investment Committee, they meet every other month to meet with investment managers and our investment consultants to go over the performance of the plan. Those meetings typically last about 5 hours, and you know, it's very important because obviously that contributes to our status. Going into recent investment portfolio returns. So as I mentioned, we have a standing investment committee. They meet bi-monthly. And so we bring in our investment managers. We have a schedule of investment managers. They're required to meet with us at least once a year, unless they're put on watch where they have to come in twice. And so they come in and they give us a report, an annual report on our investment with them. And or if we're looking into a new investment, they go over those types of things as well. Again, the trustees for that one have been really good. Those are long meetings, but you know, very important to the health of the trust. As I mentioned before, our assumed investment return rate is 7.25%. So you'll see right there a chart that shows our investment returns. The blue line that's kind of going all over the place, those are the audited market value numbers. Those are snapshots in time at the end of each fiscal year, and that's what are reported on our financials. The yellow line is our actuarial value. So I'll go into a little bit deeper on a further slide about how this works, but they smooth the values over a period of time. They take 20% of the value each year, and then the rest is banked, if you could say, and then they distribute it over the next 5 years. So that's why the yellow line has a much smoother ride to it and gives us a good representation of where we are. And you can see over time we've been able to maintain that 7.25%. The goal of the trust is not to maximize returns. The goal of the trust is to maximize return with a minimum or with a reasonable amount of risk. We could definitely go into the most risky investment and make a lot of money, but again, there's risk involved with that, so that's not what we need to do. We need to make sure that we're investing in the right things to get us to that 7.25%. All right, and sorry, this is a little small up there, but this is a page from what our investment consultants will typically show in a quarterly report. So on the top left is just a representation of where our funded status is at the end of each fiscal year. So we ended FY 2024 at 76.3%. Definitely we'd like that to be higher. If you speak with Mr. Ash, he'll tell you that kind of like a number that pension funds typically try to achieve over a long period of time is the 80%. So obviously we're a little bit short of that. So we're always looking to improve that. On the bottom left is our returns over time. So you'll see the red line that shows a 7.25% rate of return, and you can see over all the periods we are exceeding that rate of return. On the top right shows our quarterly performance. You can see that we've been performing well. With this one, just with the timing, because this is June 30th, it does hide all that volatility that I spoke about previously, because we've been able to make back some of those losses that were occurring during the fiscal year. And then the bottom right, sorry, those numbers are kind of small, but hopefully you can look at them later. Those are our asset allocations, both our what's approved by the plan, and so our target allocation and what our actual allocation is. We do our best to try and rebalance so that we can stay within those targeted numbers. There's some asset classes that we're not able to put money in or take money out without the investment manager either calling it down, or in the case of real estate, it's very difficult to get that money out. But we do the best we can to keep within these allocations. Okay, now going into results of our financial audit. So our auditors are Carr, Riggs, and Ingram. External auditors, you can see that our net position held in trust for the pension benefits increased by $76.6 million in FY24. And that was primarily due to the markets. Benefits paid to retirees were $81.4 million in FY24. The asset value increased from approximately $914 million to $991 million for FY24. Some more information on the contributions. So you can see, as I mentioned before, 8.95% for employees and 14.05% for the employers, and that's how it broke down in FY24. And if you're interested, the report we do have it on our website, eppension.org. You can find the full report there. We have seen, as far as the growth of our pension benefits to retirees has grown about 4%. It grows about 4% each year. That has kind of stabilized. There was a point in time where we were growing at like 7% a year. Following COVID, there were, more people that decided to retire, but it's kind of dropped down to we're seeing a 4% increase year over year. We do participate in the GFOA's award program, and we have been given the award 11 years in a row. Actuarial valuation. So our actuary is, their name has changed to Gallagher. So the purpose of an actuarial valuation is to determine the funding status of the plan, and of course there's state guidelines on what is acceptable for those for the plan. Since 2022, the funding ratio has decreased on a market value of assets from 77.5 to 75.2%. However, due to asset smoothing, as I briefly explained earlier, it's gone from 80.9% to 76.3%. Our unfunded actuarial accrued liability is $313.5 million, and this has increased. The primary reason for the increase is actually due to increased salaries for employees. So as participant salaries go up, so does their pension costs. So do the cost that they're going to, or the money that they're going to be making in retirement will increase. And so our actuary does an experience study every 4 years, and what we've noticed is that the rate that we were anticipating those salaries to increase has actually been much higher. So we have informed the city that it has been impacting our actuarial status, and it has impacted this number and the years to amortize. So just more on the actuarial highlights. So our actuarial accrued liability increased from 1.22 billion to 1.32 billion. And let's see, the excess. So one of the questions that you all asked of the police and fire pension is what they do to pay down the unfunded. So this second bullet on this slide is actually answering that for us. So this is kind of our buffer. So this is what we use to pay down the unfunded liability. This has slowly been decreasing as years have gone on. We keep a close eye on this. If it ever gets to the point that we feel that this isn't going to be enough, that's when we might need to come back to the city to talk about a tier 3 or that type of thing. But this is the buffer. This is what goes to funding that unfunded liability. As I've mentioned previously, we've seen a lot of volatility in the markets, so we do rely on the investment markets to fund our plan. We are a mature plan. We are cash negative each month, about $3.7 million negative each month. So we need the investments to perform in order to continue to make this our plan successful. This is going into the actuarial smoothing that I mentioned earlier. So what you'll see is on the second column there, the total gain for each one of those fiscal years, and we take 20% of each one of those years. And this is so what they'll do, and right now you'll see that we are negative. So we've had 2023 was a positive year for us. I'm sorry, those years are throwing me off there. But you can see the difference in each one of those years and the impact that it has on our overall assets. So right now we're in the negative. Hopefully this year continues to perform well and we can gain some of that back. All right, membership count. So we have surpassed over $7 million in monthly retiree payroll. Just recently, we went over $7 million in retiree payroll. Our numbers have continued to increase as far as the number of retirees. Participants has not been as quick to increase. So, there is a little bit of a difference there that we need to make up for in investments. And you might think, what is driving that dollar amount for retirements? And so a lot of the people that pass away, their retirements, their salaries that they were making were much smaller than the people that are coming off the payroll and retiring now. So that's what usually drives that dollar amount up for us. And again, if you want to find our actuarial report, it is available on our website. Cost of living adjustments. So there is no automatic COLA with our plan. Our retirees do not get an automatic COLA. We have been in existence since 1944. In that time, we have given 11 COLAs. So the last one that we gave was in May of 2022. Typically, the last few that we've done have been in the form of a one-time payment. We work with the actuary to see what makes sense for our plan, and we feel like the one-time payments are more cost efficient than giving a percentage increase. But we don't give them often, and we have guidelines to let us know or to see whether or not we are able to give them. Our guidelines are that we must be 80% funded after we give a COLA. So as you saw before, we were 76.3% funded last year. So last year, the board would not have been able to consider a COLA, and they didn't. So we'll see where we finish this year. If we're above 80%, then they have an opportunity to consider a COLA, but it's not guaranteed. So we do have parameters to keep us from just giving COLAs all the time. If we were to give constant COLAs, that would cause our actuarial valuation, our unfunded, to go high. And that's it. Unless you have any questions for me.
Any questions from anyone? Representative Maldonado Rocha?
Thank you so much for the presentation. That was extremely helpful to understand. I have one question going back to the recent investment portfolio returns on slide 6. There you're showing the market value versus the actuarial value. Is there any insight as to what 2025 is looking like?
So that would be 2025 as a percentage. I don't have it from our treasurer's report. I want to say we were around 8% was the recent treasurer's report. But that's, let me see, if you look. Okay, yeah, 7.74. Where did I find that? Okay, yeah, 7.74. You can find it on the quarterly number right there.
7.74?
Yeah.
Oh, on this one here? Okay,
Yes.
I guess I didn't see it. Let me see.
But of course, that can change. So our fiscal year end August 31st. We have a little bit more time. We're hoping that this will continue to trend in a positive direction. But yeah, this is as of June 30th.
That's the total fund,
Yes.
right? And the benchmark is 7.85.
Well, so I think what our investments consultants are doing here is they're comparing us to a universe. So that 7.85 isn't our yeah, we try and get 7.25%. So we're above what we try to get right now. Well, as of June 30th.
As of June, yeah. Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Representative Chavez?
Thank you, Chairman. And also thank you for the presentation. It was very informative. I appreciate the numbers and all the detailed information. I do have a question on slide 10. Something that stood out to me that worries me a little bit is the benefit payments were 81.4 million and the contributions are 55.9. So obviously there's a big gap between those two numbers. How do you foresee this, increasing or decreasing going forward, this gap?
So really, the investments are what make up that right now, and that buffer that I told you about is continuing to shrink. So it could be increased participants. So if we hire more employees that start paying more into the plan, but I think this is just a characteristic of a mature plan, is to be cash negative. But so we hope that buffer doesn't get too small, and maybe we can still see that grow, but it would take more participants at this point. I don't know if Mr. Ash
Robert Ash, Executive Director again. I see that number probably increasing in time, not decreasing, just because we're going to have more and more retirees, and we're paying them at higher values, as Mr. Sanchez said, than the ones that pass away because their salaries are higher. And so with mature plans, it's not unusual to see this negative cash flow. However, we'd have to raise contributions more than double to try to make up that difference. I mean, it's a big hurdle to try to equal out. Doesn't mean it can happen, but if you just look at contribution increases, it would be a stretch to get to even cash flow.
And you said employees are contributing about 8%? Is that right?
Right. It's governed by ordinance. It's 7.95% right now. We've had one contribution increase in the last 40 years. So by the city and the employees. So we've been able to manage the trust in such a way. When we talk about negative cash flow, please remember that's negative without interest and dividends being included. I know I got people from OTC here that'll be able to chime in. Mr. Meyer, Ms. Jacobs, Ms. Marin,
I was just
Mr.
going to chime in at
Cortines.
8.95%.
8.95.
Sorry, 8.95%. It's a team effort here. We work very closely with the city. Ms. Neiman, her staff, even the internal audit staff come over and visit us. Ms. Guerra and her staff with HR. It's a team effort, and we want to thank them for their efforts.
No, absolutely. And there's uncertainty in the market, and so some of these things are hard to
Right,
foresee.
and the difference between that smoothed return and the market returns are due to that market volatility. And we have certain years where we think we're doing well, and then in 2018, for example, the last quarter was terrible. And so we're on the city's fiscal year. We have to deal with that volatility, with the market volatility. 2022 looked like a real negative year. That's the year, remember, it wasn't that far ago, but you have to remember, bonds weren't working. Interest rates were going up. Stocks, equities have troubles. And so it's reflected in our return. Long term, though, we've been able to meet and exceed that 7.25% assumed investment return assumption, which is reasonable. Our amortization period is 16 years. Fire and police, I heard them earlier, and theirs are 16 years. State Pension Review Board would like us at 25 years or less. GASB, 30 years or less. So we're well positioned there at this time as well. So we're not asking for an increase in contributions at this point, but we'll work with the city if that ever comes to fruition. The last time we came to the city, took us probably a year and a half to work out contribution increase, worked very closely with them, and that's when we created the second tier at the same time. So we work
Thank
very
you.
closely with them.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you. No further questions.
Any other discussion? Representative Nino?
Thank you, Chairman. One thing that stood out to me was, look at this slide. Slide number 13, the accrued liability versus the assets. Congratulations on keeping a healthy retirement fund. I know that we mentioned that the current ordinance is 8.95%. Do we have a large number of employees who contribute further than what is required?
So no, you can't. So
can't,
it's
okay.
it is you can only contribute the 8.95%, and the city throws in the 14.05%.
Got you.
You can't put any more, any less. There are some employees that have an option to participate at all, but it's either 8.95% or they don't participate in the plan at all.
Got you. Okay. No further questions. I just wanted to congratulate you and thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
your presentation.
Thank you so much for the thorough presentation.
All right.
Appreciate it. Okay, we'll move on to item number 5, discussion and action on the results of round 9 of the hotel occupancy tax audit. Mr. Calderon.
I'm back. Let me find it. Here you go. Okay. The internal audit department just completed round 9. Well, we call them by rounds. It's actually a year, the calendar year that we use. And what we do, our objectives when we do these types of audits, we do a sample of 20 hotels. Okay, the city, and that number moves all the time on us on the number of hotels that are open. I think currently we have 118 we're servicing right now, or they're paying hotel tax. So my goal is when we do this, because that number moves, sometimes 110, because hotels open and close all the time, sometimes due to remodeling. Sometimes they get sold. There's one on Dyer Street that I just drove by the other day. It got torn down. I mean, right now it's an empty lot. That's the second time this has happened to us. The hotel is gone. So it drops off the tax rolls. So our goal is to at least audit every big major hotel once every 5 years using this methodology. So we did 20. The scope of the work we did was from January 1, 2021 to December 1, 2024. That's 4 years. And that was included in the sample of 20 hotels. What happens here is that state law allows us to look at the current year plus 3 previous years. So we have a 3-year look back period. And that's as far as we can go. So it's 4 years total. Okay. The finding that we had on this report, the 20 hotels, we were able to identify an additional $1.4 million that was an additional hot tax. That was in addition to what they already paid. So this is additional hot tax that was done because of the audit results that we looked at their exemptions, their additional fees, their income that they charge that we get a percentage of. So we've identified $1.4 million. Okay. And then our recommendation is the Office of the Comptroller should collect the amount owed to the City of El Paso. We've already reported this to the Comptroller. We've assisted in them in sending out the collection letters to the hotels. So we are working on that. We do have a few hotels that have asked for a re-audit, which I agreed to do. So we're taking a look at those right now. So that number might move a little bit downward because they're providing additional information. But at the time when the audit was completed, it was $1.4 million on those 20 hotels. And if you look at the audit report that was attached, you will see the list of the 20 hotels. We actually name them and the dollar amount that was owed by each hotel. Okay, so our conclusion, the audit of the 20 hotels identified additional hotel occupancy tax owed to the City of El Paso for disallowed tax exemptions, and requested action to accept the results of the hotel audit round 9 and forward the audit report to the City Council for action. So, I'll answer any questions you might have.
Representative Chavez?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Calderon. I have a few questions. The first is, how many hotel audits have you conducted?
It's real easy, number 9.
Okay.
Because let me tell you a little bit of history.
All right.
Back in 2015, we signed a contract with Avenue Insights to help us in conducting hotel audits. Before 2015, I was doing them here in my office. Our office was doing them. But because of the audit plan that we would have, we had city departments we needed to audit. We had contractors we needed to audit. All the other stuff we had to do. We were lucky if we could do 1 or 2 hotels a year. With over 100 hotels in the City of El Paso, it would have taken us over 50 years to get every hotel reviewed. So in talking to my colleagues throughout the state of Texas, they were using the model we're using now, where we would outsource or co-source really with the Avenue Insights, and thus gave us the ability to do 20 hotels a year.
And every year that you've done an audit, do you find additional occupancy tax owed to the city?
Yes, ma'am. The history has shown that we're able to identify, we cover the cost of the audit with the additional hot tax that we identify. And that swings both ways. Sometimes we have hotels that, most of the time, they owe us additional money. But then we've also identified hotels that overpaid on their hot tax. And we will work with the comptroller's office and arrange a refund of the overpayment if it's identified during the audit.
And the amount you found this year, the 1.4 million, is that standard? Is that higher or lower?
That's actually one of the highest we've had in the 9 years we've done this. That's why we call them rounds.
And do all of these hotels go on payment plans?
That is up to the Comptroller's office, because
Okay.
I kind of step away after we identify the amount, and I turn that dollar amount over to the Comptroller's office. They take the collections over. Yes, sometimes they do arrange a payment plan, they do arrange, pay it at the end of the month, they make terms.
Do you know if the terms include interest?
There is interest and penalties included for non-payment, yes, there is.
Okay, and how many of these hotels from the ones you've identified are going to get a second audit that have requested it?
We've identified 5, ma'am.
5 out of the 20?
Yeah, the hotels that had requested a relook.
And then what happens if you've found hotels that, owe money to the city? I know that you're trying to get to all the hotels which you just described so you can go around the whole city. But what happens if you find a hotel that, frequently doesn't pay their hot tax?
We work with the Comptroller's office by providing them information, and the Comptroller's office is responsible for the collection of the amount.
The collection, but I mean, moving forward, how do we assure that they're paying their hot tax?
I understand your question now.
Yes.
Our contractor, Avenue Insights, does provide outreach and, how can you put it, coaching services to the hotels. And my office does also, we kind of give coaching to the hotels. Like, hey, you kind of missed this, be sure to include this income. For example, if it's a non-smoking room and they smoke in it, you have to pay for the cleanup or the deodorizing of the hotel room.
But no permits are taken away from not paying a hot tax?
No, ma'am, we have not had that yet. We've worked very closely with
Mr.
the
Cortinas-
hotels to make sure everything's
Thank you,
done.
Mr. Cortez.
That was the one I was going to mention. So
Yeah.
you probably saw in the response, and we actually sent you all this list back in May of the delinquent ones, but we follow the legal process. And so we engage an outside agency. We actually had one earlier this year that faced a judgment. We're actually going to close that hotel down because they were delinquent on their payments.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we worked with them, gave them another opportunity, and they did come back and actually pay the amount that they owed. So the city does have the authority to work with our city attorney's office to actually close down hotel for non-payment.
Okay. That's what I wanted to get to. Thank you so much, and thank you, Mr. Calderon.
Oh, you're welcome.
No more questions.
Representative Nino.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Calderon, for the great presentation. Rep Chavez did a lot of questions I was going to ask about interest, but one question is, do we collect the funds directly? I know that you mentioned that we use that third-party avenue to help us do the coaching, but do we collect 100% of what's owed, or is there a fee associated to another party helping us collect those fees?
The city does have an outside law firm that helps with the collections, and to this point, I can actually say we've collected 100% of it.
I'm sorry?
We've collected 100% of what's owed to
100%.
the city.
Okay.
I have no knowledge of somebody not paying.
Okay, and the fees that get associated whenever we use a third-party law firm, is that collected separately?
The fees that are charged by the firm, it's paid by the hotel. It's
By the
included to the amount that's
good.
owed.
Okay, oh,
It's additional fee.
great. Okay, great presentation. I truly appreciate you and also Avenue for this audit.
It's a very successful program.
Yeah.
I'm real proud of it.
Yeah. No further questions. I just wanted to ensure that we are able to collect the 100% of the fees that are owed to the city. Thank you.
Representative Maldonado Rocha.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Calderon, again for that presentation. Just a quick question. How are third-party bookers, like, the Expedia, the Booking.com, all of those, how are those included in this audit?
The third-party vendors or providers, the Expedias, they pay for a hotel room. Of course, they pay a huge discount, okay? So we collect the money that the hotel charged Expedia, okay? So that, for example, it's $100 room, Expedia buys it for $25. We collect on the $25. The Expedia and that other outfit that they have,
There's so many.
it's still out there.
Okay.
That has not been settled yet. There's still debate, discussion, litigation on that one.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So thank you for this report. I was kind of looking through your report, and I see a lot that are invalid exempt revenue. And
Yes.
so the way I'm interpreting that is they thought that they were exempt, but then they really weren't.
Yeah. A lot of it is the hotel fails to provide our auditors the documentation and the support for the exemption. The types of exemptions that are common here in El Paso is federal government. As you know, because of what's happening at the border, huge influx of federal employees coming in. And they've been known to take over a hotel. I mean, completely take over. And I'm not talking about housing migrants. This is housing employees coming in to help. And that's one of the exemptions. The other exemption, a major exemption, is over 30 days stay. Sometimes employees come into El Paso, you're transferring to El Paso, you'll rent a hotel for 45 days. You're exempt from paying hotel tax. That's one of the allowed exemptions per state law. So those are the two major. Universities, I know people come in to visit UTEP, visit the community college, they're exempt from hot tax. So where we have the problem is, Rep. Acevedo, there's documentation that has to be done at the time of check-in, when they check into the hotel. And sometimes those documents are not available, and that's why they're disallowed.
Okay. So that just is kind of interesting to me in the sense that I feel like a lot of these things are legal issues that amount, like what Mr. Cortina sent us in May. A lot of the ones from round 7 and round 8 are in the legal department, and they're probably fighting what they owe us or they don't. So I think more, like 2 weeks ago, there was a story that KFOX put out, and I believe it was around round 8. And they said, $1.1 million is owed to the city. Now I feel like in the coming weeks or months, KFOX is going to say 1.4 million is owed to the city. And so I really want to find more, and this is probably not really with you anymore, but it's more with Ms. Mack, on how we can be more transparent with the public on what is owed. I think what Mr. Cortina sent us back in May, because I think we were discussing this back in May, is can we have some sort of quarterly update? I don't know if it gets posted similar to our P-card transactions on our consent agenda for council, so we kind of have an understanding of where things are with these things. Because what we're saying is, oh, this is the comptroller is doing every effort to get the payment, but at the same time, that's not really telling the full story, right? Because sometimes these are things that are held up with the legal department because they're suing us or whatever it is. But I want to have a better way of being more transparent with the public, because we're seeing something from round 2 back in 2017. We're still collecting on that. And so when we're saying, oh, we're making every good faith effort to do it, the public might not think that we are, right? And most of it is out of our control. We are trying to collect that money, but how can we present information in a better way to be more transparent? Okay, thank you. And Mr. Calderon, on the audit, if you could do a slight change to the title page.
Sure.
Right under round 9.
Yes.
Can you just put January 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2024? So it's just very clear from the onset that that's where it is, and we don't get lost in the rounds of things. The rounds make sense, but I think it'll just bring more clarity to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and in an answer to your question on the KFOX story, that audit was a result of a request from FOAC last year. And we looked at rounds 1 through 8 to see, because FOAC at that time was very interested of these audits, what is still owed. So when you mentioned the 1.1 million, that was just not 1 year, that was actually several years if you
Okay.
look at the list. So just that way you'll
Okay, that makes
understand.
more sense.
Mhm.
Okay, I appreciate that. Okay, this is posted for discussion and action. Is there a motion? There's a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay, I hear 4 ayes. That passes unanimously, 4-0. And I'm trying to be cognizant of time, FOAC. If we could just do one last item and we could postpone the next one item to August, I think it's important that we get through the third quarter update. Is that okay? Okay.
You want to do the third quarter update?
Yes.
Not the audit plan briefing
Yeah,
you
we could
wanted?
postpone that one after,
Okay.
just because we're already at 2 hours. Item number 8.
The court, just to let you know, the audit update, for the audit plan update is very, very short.
I think
And,
there's going to be a lot of questions on that one.
but, yeah.
So I think it's better if we just postpone it.
Okay, and
That
just-
way we don't drag this out. So
Sure.
let me read number 8. Number 8, discussion on FY 2024-2025 audit plan, third quarter update. Mr. Montiel?
Yeah, at this point, I'm going to have Mike Montiel come up and give you a briefing. He's done it before, and he's kind of my little expert on these quarterly updates. So here is Mike Montiel.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Miguel Montiel. I'm the audit manager, and we'll briefly go over the third quarter update. Just do a quick synopsis on this. So remember, this is a third quarter update, so the time frame is covered as March 1st through May 31st, 2025. So you got a second page here. This is just a reporting statement where we state that the Global Internal Audit Standards requires the Chief Internal Auditor to report periodically to the Financial Oversight and Audit Committee on our activity for that quarter. And then we also state here that we conduct audits in accordance with both the generally accepted government auditing standards and the Global Internal Audit Standards. Other page here is just stating that according to the Global Internal Audit Standards, the Internal Audit Department, we have to continue and maintain our independence. And I'm not going to read everything, just give you a brief synopsis here. Slide here, number 4. Of course, this is as of May 31st. We report on our training hours. Our staff, many or most of our staff is certified, has some sort of certification. Some auditors have several certifications, so we need to earn at least 40 CPE hours per year to maintain our certifications. So here's just a synopsis on our auditors and their CPE goals as of May 31st. Slide 5, this is just a quick synopsis on the audit plan completion. So this is from September 1st, 2024 through May 31st. We just create a pie chart, and audits completed 15, audits in progress 20, and we have a percentages for both. Slide number 6 is just a listing of audits completed, in progress, and some not started. So the next two slides, 6 and 7, have a listing of those audits and projects or audits that are complete and in progress. Since this is as of May 31st, like as of today, I know today we completed and presented 2 audits. So those 2, for the next time we come back, those are being marked complete instead of in progress as they are now. And several of these that are marked in progress as of today, the audit work has been completed. We just need to go through the process of bringing them to FOAC and present them to you for acceptance, and then we can mark those as completed as well. So that's slide 6, slide 7, and just continuing on the list. And then slide 8, here we discuss our employee hotline. So as of May 31st, and this is just for the third quarter, we received 9 calls to the hotline. As of May 31st, 2 calls had remained open. And then as of May 31st, there was 1 call open that had been received in the second quarter, I'm sorry. As of today, all those calls have been closed. Okay. Slide 9. Here we discuss the tax office refunds reviews that we conduct. As you're aware, a couple times a month the tax office brings over the tax office refunds for your approval for citizens to get their their refunds, the refund checks back. So what we do is review all those refunds before the tax office brings them up for your approval. So we conducted 41 tax office refund reviews in the third quarter. And have Q&A.
Any questions? Okay, I had since we're already in the last quarter of the year,
Yes, sir.
we're about to finish the year. I'm wondering, do you foresee any of the audits in progress to carry over to the next year?
There'll be a few, and just because, well, some of them are in progress. Actually, we're working on them at the moment. Some of them that we marked as in progress, they're done as far as the audit work. We just need to bring them here to FOAC for your approval. So that's why they're still in progress. So next FOAC meeting, we'll bring some more to you. So those will get checked off the list. So, but there'll be, once we do the tally of everything that got approved, there'll be a couple, a few that will be carried forward to next fiscal year too for completion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And during the fourth quarter update, we'll let you know which audits are still pending, and we'll give an estimate of how many hours will take to complete those.
That'll be helpful.
Yes.
I appreciate it. Okay. Any other discussion on this? Okay. So this item has no action. If we could go to item number 4, can I get a motion to postpone to August? I'll read it into the record. Number 4 is presentation on the preparation of the 25-26 annual audit plan.
Motion to postpone. Second.
Okay, there is a motion and a second to postpone this item to the August meeting. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, seeing none, this passes unanimously 4-0. That brings us to the end of the agenda, but before we adjourn, or I ask for somebody to make a motion to adjourn, I just really wanted to thank you, Mr. Calderon, for 20 years of service to the city of El Paso. I know that's a long time, and there's been a lot in those 20 years, and really appreciate what you bring to the table in terms of the internal audit function being so essential to city government. That is really key. So I wanted to thank you. This is your last meeting for the FOAC. So it's been great working with you, and I wish you the best in your retirement. If anybody else wants to say
you very
anything,
much.
I wanted to
I
open it.
appreciate it. 20 years has been a long time. I've been in the profession over 40 years. And it's been fun. It's been a party.
Well, thank you for giving us half of your profession.
Yes.
Half of the years of service to your profession. I'm sorry.
You'll see me. I'll pop in every once in a while just to check up on you guys, okay?
Okay. Please do. We could
And
get a
remember,
Whataburger.
please take care of my staff. I found them, I hired them, I trained them, and I nurtured them. So please, they're a professional group, and you guys are in great hands with them. They know what to do.
Thank you, Mr. Calderon.
Okay.
I'm going to go to Representative Nino.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Calderon. Thank you so much for all your years of service. I know we've had so many great conversations, and I myself have also learned from you. So thank you so much for your leadership and the 20 years that you gave to the city of El Paso and the citizens. And I wish you the best.
Remember, if you ever have any questions, pick up the phone and call me.
Thank you.
Representative Maldonado Rocha.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Calderon, for everything. More importantly, enjoy your retirement. You've earned it. So I hope there's a lot of wonderful trips and good memories to come once you retire.
There's 2 little girls in San Antonio, Texas that can't wait for Grandpa to go see them play softball and volleyball.
That's exactly right. So enjoy your time.
That's
Thank
gonna
you
be the fun
again.
part.
And maybe Grandpa could give them better Mexican food.
Yes.
Representative Chavez.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Calderon. It's been a pleasure to work with you these last 7 months. I've learned a lot from you, and I look forward to continuing, your legacy here at the city and on the FOAC. And I also hope you enjoy your retirement. You've
Thank
earned
you.
it, and just make sure to go forth and do great things.
Yeah, I'll still be in El Paso. I'm not going to move. I'll still be here. I'll still be around. You'll probably see me in the mall or in the restaurant someplace. Please stop it. Please stop me and say hi.
We'll stop you and say hi.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Calderon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, appreciate it. There's a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Yeah, we could take a picture. Motion to adjourn. There's a second. All in favor? Aye. That passes unanimously. The meeting of the Financial Oversight and Audit Committee is adjourned at 3:11 p.m. Thank you.